You don't belong here. This showroom isn't for your kind. Try the used lot at the end of the alley. Might be more your speed. That's what Nicole Harris, a sales associate at Horizon Auto Dealership, said, loud, shameless, and laughing. It echoed through the glass showroom like an alarm no one turned off. The woman she was mocking? Vanessa Carter. In 10 minutes. Nicole would learn that the woman she just humiliated wasn't just another walk-in. She was the new owner, and her boss. But right now, all Nicole could see was a black woman in a white t-shirt and jeans, standing alone, claiming to own the place. The arrogance, the bias, the sheer disrespect, and all of it about to be broadcast across the internet. But before we dive into this jaw-dropping story, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another powerful real-life drama like this one. And hey, if you believe in justice, redemption, and calling out bias, go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up. Now let's walk through the glass doors of Horizon Auto Dealership in Atlanta, Georgia, where Vanessa's quiet test turns into a storm. It was June 21st, 2024, 1:04 p.m. sharp. Vanessa Carter, a 42-year-old CEO born and raised in Atlanta, pulled into the lot alone, no security, no entourage, just her, wearing plain jeans and a crisp white tee, hair tied back, and a calm confidence in her eyes. She came to watch, to listen, to see who deserved to be part of her vision for a new, inclusive dealership. She hadn't signed the contract yet. That was waiting with James Thompson, the current owner. But this was her business now in all but ink. As she walked in, heads didn't turn, because nobody expected the new owner to look like her. Vanessa smiled politely and introduced herself at the front desk. Nicole was the first to speak, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. You? Own Horizon? Ma'am, this isn't the used lot. This is where real buyers come. Brian Foster, another sales associate nearby, chuckled under his breath and added, You don't look like an owner. You got ID or just stories? Vanessa reached into her purse and calmly pulled out her Georgia driver's license and a black platinum card, sliding them on the counter. Nicole barely glanced at them before scoffing. Fake, obviously. Brian leaned in. Maybe you can grab lunch for the real customers? That's when Daniel Pierce, the showroom manager, stepped in, not to stop the mockery, but to back it up. You're disrupting my floor, he said coldly, waving a clipboard. You need to leave. Ma'am. Vanessa didn't flinch. She simply said, I'm here to finalize an acquisition. I need to speak with James Thompson. Daniel shook his head, dismissing her words entirely. You need to leave before we call someone, he repeated, now with a tone that cut deep. Security was already approaching. Linda Walsh, in uniform, arms folded, expression sharp, stood next to the front desk. You either walk out now or I escort you. Last warning, she said, not even blinking. This was the moment Vanessa knew she had to document everything, quietly. She tapped her phone's record button in her pocket. At the same time, Mia Lang, a 23-year-old trainee sales associate, was watching from the side, eyes wide, stunned. She reached for her own phone and began recording audio too, whispering to herself. This isn't right. It wasn't, because what they didn't know, what no one but Vanessa, Mia, and her assistant Rachel knew, was that this visit was a test, and everyone was failing. As Linda stepped forward, ready to escort Vanessa out, two customers who had been standing near the new Tesla display jumped in. Emma Larson, 37, white, visiting from Minnesota, pulled out her phone and shouted, This is disgusting! I'm filming this! Beside her, Michael Grant, 41, from North Carolina, already had his phone up. You can't treat people like this, he said loudly, making sure his voice carried. Nicole turned to them, half laughing. You think this is the owner? Be serious. But Emma and Michael didn't stop. They hit record, and seconds later, both uploaded the video to X and TikTok with the hashtag #HorizonShock. Meanwhile, Vanessa, still calm, dialed her assistant. "Rachel," she said into her phone, "log this. I need James here. Now." Rachel's voice came back instantly. "Already on it. Sending him your location." Back in the showroom, Nicole refused to let up. "You want a car?" she sneered. "Try the alley. They got a Camry back there with your name on it." It was a reference Vanessa recognized immediately. The 2021 Miami incident, when a black woman trying to buy a luxury car was told to go to a lot down the street. It wasn't just biased, it was intentional, insidious. Daniel, still holding the clipboard, muttered something about a VIP customer coming in soon and not wanting the scene to escalate. Brian added, "Can't have someone just walking in off the street claiming they own the place?" Vanessa tilted her head and looked him straight in the eyes. "You'll regret this," she said. Mia, now clearly emotional, stepped forward. "She's the new owner. I heard James talk about the acquisition." Nicole waved her off. "You've been here 5 minutes. Stay in your lane. Trainee." Emma, still filming, snapped back. "She's the only decent one in here," Michael added. "This is racial profiling, period." And then came the twist that dropped jaws. Nicole sat down at her desk, flipped open her laptop, and typed something quickly into the sales log. Mia, walking behind, glanced at the screen. Her eyes narrowed. "Wait," she whispered. Nicole had just erased any mention of Vanessa Carter from the system. "No record of that name," Nicole said smugly, loud enough for everyone to hear. Brian chuckled. "Told you she was bluffing." Mia turned and whispered to Vanessa. "She's altering the sales log." Vanessa stared straight ahead. "They're trying to bury me before I even sign the contract." In the background, more customers had started paying attention. Some shook their heads. One woman whispered, "This place has had problems before." Another man muttered, "Not the first time I've seen stuff like this here." The air was thick, not just with tension, but with something breaking, something raw and honest. Vanessa slowly slid her phone into her pocket. She didn't need to yell, didn't need to threaten, because every second of this was being captured, broadcast, and felt. She looked around and said quietly, "You're not just disrespecting me. You're ruining Horizon." No one knew what was coming. Not Nicole, not Brian, not Daniel, not Linda. But the countdown had begun. And in 10 minutes, they'd all realized the mistake of judging someone by what they wear, instead of who they are. "You need to leave right now or face security," Daniel said, pointing at the front entrance like he was talking to a trespasser, not the woman about to become his boss. His voice was colder now, sharper, louder. Nicole, still at her desk, added with a smug grin, "You're a fraud, and policy says we don't deal with liars." She gestured toward the laminated code of conduct taped to the back wall like it meant something, like it ever protected people like Vanessa. Brian, not missing a beat, leaned over the sales counter and muttered just loud enough, "People like her belong at the used lot, not up in here pretending to buy Teslas." Linda, the security officer, crossed her arms and stepped closer, her boots making hard clicks on the showroom tile. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," she said flatly. Vanessa stood still, not flinching, her fingers gently tapping the side of her thigh, recording still rolling. Her eyes scanned the room, beyond the polished cars and bright dealership lighting. The real story was unfolding right in front of her, a mix of arrogance, ignorance, and unfiltered bias. Mia Lang, the trainee associate, could barely stand still. "She's the owner," she repeated, her voice firmer this time. Daniel whipped his head toward her. "That's enough. Mia, you're new here. Don't speak unless asked. Mia stood her ground. No, I've heard James Thompson mention her. I know her name. This isn't right. The tension thickened. Nicole leaned over to Brian and said with a chuckle, "Look at that t-shirt. Bet she walked in from a MARTA station thinking this was a mall." Brian smirked. "Maybe she got confused. Should be grateful we didn't call security 10 minutes ago." Just then, Emma Larson, still filming from near the SUV display, raised her voice. "This is wrong. She hasn't done anything but speak the truth. Why are you so afraid of her?" Michael Grant, standing beside her, said, "Because they know she's telling the truth, and that makes them nervous." He uploaded his video with the caption, "Daylight discrimination, #Horizon Shock." Emma followed right behind, tagging the dealership and writing, "This is why we don't feel safe shopping. Fix this." Meanwhile, Daniel and Nicole were growing bolder, feeding off each other. "I'll update the sales log," Nicole said, opening her laptop. "We don't need these disruptions showing up in our metrics." Brian leaned closer, watching her screen. "Just delete it," he muttered. Mia, standing close by, heard it all. "You're altering company records," she said, stunned. "That's illegal." Nicole smirked and closed her laptop. "You're new. You'll learn the ropes." The air shifted, subtle, but it was there. A few customers began whispering. One woman pointed at Vanessa and asked her friend, "Isn't that the woman in those Forbes interviews?" Another man near the front muttered, "This is feeling shady, real shady." Vanessa, still composed, stepped back and called Rachel. "James needs to be here, now, with documents," she said calmly. "Send him to the showroom." Rachel didn't miss a beat. "He's en route. I've also logged everything." "What's happening there?" Vanessa whispered. "They're editing logs, mocking me, ignoring Mia. It's a circus." Rachel's voice dropped. "We're not just getting receipts. We're burning the whole circus down." Vanessa gave a faint smile. She hung up and stood taller. "Recordings are being sent," she said aloud to no one in particular, but loud enough for Linda to hear. "Just so we're clear," Linda narrowed her eyes, "you're threatening the staff now?" Vanessa didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her voice would speak through every upload, every timestamp. That was when Mia, holding her phone tightly, whispered to Vanessa, "They've done this before. Complaints were made. Daniel and Nicole never passed them up. Said they were security matters. Same excuse every time." Vanessa nodded, absorbing every word. Emma, watching from across the room, shouted, "I've seen this before in Chicago. Same setup, same silence. Y'all need to clean house." Michael turned to Linda. "Aren't you supposed to de-escalate? Not make things worse?" Linda's jaw clenched. "It's not your concern." But it was. Because now every second was going online, inside her mind. Vanessa wasn't just replaying the last 10 minutes. She was rewinding years. 15, to be exact. She was 24, fresh out of college, clean resume, bright ambition. Walked into a dealership in Atlanta, dressed sharp, confident, hopeful. She'd practiced how to greet the hiring manager, practiced how to shake hands, speak clearly, smile. None of it mattered. "We're not hiring right now," they told her. But she'd seen the listing online that same morning. What they meant was, "We're not hiring you." That moment burned in her. Not the rejection, but the lie. That same lie was repeating itself today, only louder. And this time, she had power, real power. Vanessa turned to Daniel. "You know what this is?" she asked, not expecting him to answer. "This is why good businesses fail. Not because of economics, not because of competition, because people like you protect bias like it's part of the company uniform." Daniel rolled his eyes. "You're delusional," Nicole added. You're wasting our time." Vanessa smiled slightly. "And yet I'm the only one here not panicking." Mia stepped forward. "I stand with Vanessa," she said. Nicole hissed. "You'll lose your job for this," Mia answered. "Then I'll lose it doing the right thing." From behind the rows of polished sedans and showroom lights, the murmurs grew louder. Customers were no longer shopping. They were watching, listening, recording. Emma raised her phone and said, "Apologize to her. Right now." Michael stepped closer to the desk. "This is a disgrace," he said firmly. "She's your boss and you don't even know it." Nicole, still clinging to control, crossed her arms. "She's got no name in the log, no appointment, no suit, no nothing. Just a story." Mia turned to Vanessa and whispered. "They're going to regret this," Vanessa whispered back. "They already should." A moment later, Mia raised her voice to the other customers. "They've ignored past complaints, covered for each other, protected profiling." She held up her phone, paused her recording, and said, "It's all right here." The room fell quiet for just a moment, but it was the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Vanessa stepped forward, one hand still by her side, the other gently resting on her phone. "Your bias ends today," she said, locking eyes with Daniel. He flinched, just a blink, but it was there. And in that instant, everything began to shift. Customers moved closer to Vanessa, employees looked uneasy, and the foundation of Horizon Auto started to crack, right there under the weight of one woman's patience and a whole lot of evidence. "This woman is disrupting our dealership. She needs to leave immediately." Daniel's voice blared over the showroom's intercom system like a fire drill. Customers froze mid-step. The hum of casual conversation stopped, and everyone turned to the woman at the center of it all, Vanessa Carter, still standing tall, still silent, still recording. It was the final humiliation, the loudest insult yet. Nicole grinned as the words rang out. Brian smirked behind a stack of glossy brochures. Linda stepped closer again, pulling out her walkie-talkie, her voice firm. "If you don't comply now, we'll have no choice but to contact the authorities." Vanessa didn't move. She didn't even blink. She just raised her eyes, staring calmly at Linda as if to say, "Go ahead." Nicole crossed her arms and snickered. "Told you she wasn't owner material," Brian chimed in. "She's probably filming to get a payout. Seen it before." From the corner of the showroom, Mia was done hiding. "She's the owner. She's the one buying this place, and you're all acting like she's some random stranger. You're humiliating her." Nicole rolled her eyes and muttered, "Just like you to take her side." Mia ignored her and stepped closer to Vanessa. "I've got everything recorded. I'll share it if I have to." Daniel turned from the service counter, eyes wild. "You'll do what I tell you, Mia, or you'll be gone before you can log your next shift," Mia said clearly. "Then I'll leave with her, because I'm not watching this go down without saying something." The two customers, Emma Larson and Michael Grant, had moved from filming in the corner to now standing directly between Vanessa and the front desk, shoulders squared, phones high, recording every second. "This is unacceptable," Emma said loud enough to echo. "She is the owner, and you're trying to shame her out of her own building." Michael's voice cut in sharp. "I've got 5,000 views in the last hour and counting. You're about to be famous, for all the wrong reasons." Nicole turned pale. "They're filming," she whispered. Daniel hissed. "Of course they're filming, you idiot." Brian looked toward the glass doors, nervously adjusting his collar. Linda said quietly into her walkie, "Situation escalating. We may need backup." But no one had moved against Vanessa. The customers around her were shifting too, forming a quiet wall of support. A small human barrier was beginning to take shape. No one had planned it, It just happened. One woman folded her arms and stood by Emma. A man with 2 kids moved in closer and whispered, "This ain't right." And that's when Mia pulled out her phone, opened the voice memo app, and hit play. Daniel's voice filled the space. Clear, unmistakable. "She's trouble. Just get her out of here. Don't want another complaint ruining our bonus numbers." Then Nicole's voice. "If we erase her name from the logs, there's no proof she was even here." Brian's snickering followed. Mia didn't say a word. She just let the recording play. Customers gasped. One woman clapped a hand over her mouth. A man standing near the reception said out loud, "Did he just say erase her name?" Emma's phone caught all of it, her live video comment count exploding. "This staff's out of line," she announced in her stream. "This is discrimination, plain and simple." Michael posted the audio with a caption. "Proof. They knew what they were doing. #Horizon Shock." Daniel lunged toward Mia's phone. "Turn that off," he barked, but he didn't touch her. He couldn't. Too many witnesses. Mia stepped behind Vanessa. "It's all backed up," she said, loud and fearless. Vanessa slowly turned to Daniel. "You're done," she said, calm. "Even. You just don't know it yet." Nicole tried to recover. "She's playing the victim. This is manipulation." Emma stepped in. "You mocked her clothes, questioned her ID, deleted her name. And now you want to flip the script?" Michael added. "Save it. You're the ones in the wrong. Period." Daniel tried one last angle. "She's not even on the appointment list." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "I don't need an appointment to walk into my own property." That sentence sent a wave through the crowd. A young man in a hoodie near the window said, "Wait, what?" A woman holding her daughter whispered, "She owns this place?" Mia nodded. "Yes. The deal's being finalized today." Vanessa didn't confirm or deny. She let the evidence speak for her. Rachel's voice buzzed in Vanessa's ear via earpiece. "James is 5 minutes away. He's bringing the full acquisition packet." Vanessa nodded slightly and whispered, "Send the audio to him." Rachel's voice was calm and fierce. "Already done. We're backing it all up." Nicole looked around the showroom and saw the shift happening. "Brian," she whispered, "do something." But Brian stepped back instead. "This isn't looking good," he muttered. "Not with 50K people watching." Mia turned to Nicole and said, "You called her a liar. You laughed in her face. You altered records to erase her. And now the world knows." Nicole's face was pale now. "You're twisting things." "No," Emma said, stepping in. "You twisted them. She's just straightening them out." Linda stepped forward, almost hesitating. "This is getting out of control." But Vanessa turned to her and said gently, "You haven't laid a hand on me. I respect that, but don't let them pull you down with them. Choose where you stand." Linda didn't reply, but she didn't step closer either. Vanessa's phone buzzed, a text from Rachel. "James is in the parking lot." Vanessa looked toward the windows. Her calm hadn't broken once. She didn't need to shout. The evidence shouted for her. She didn't need to push. The truth was pushing harder than anyone. As the tension hung in the air, Mia looked around at the crowd, then back at Vanessa. "They've exposed themselves," she said. Vanessa nodded. "And now we expose the system that protected them." Just then, another wave of customers who had quietly been browsing started joining the forming wall, standing in silence, shoulder to shoulder. Daniel looked around, surrounded by witnesses, phones, and shame. Nicole stood frozen. Brian turned away, pretending to straighten a stack of keys. Linda slowly lowered her walkie. The tide had turned, and the owner hadn't even said the words yet, but her presence, her patience, and her power had spoken volumes. The countdown was nearly over. Justice wasn't just coming. It had already arrived. And it brought receipts. Daniel snapped. The pressure was finally too much for him to hold in. Nicole, Brian, get her out of here. Now. His voice cracked with something between panic and rage as he pointed at Vanessa like she was an intruder, not the future of the dealership. Nicole hesitated, eyes darting between the customers who now formed a full semicircle around Vanessa. Daniel, there are too many people watching, she whispered. Do it, he barked, cutting her off. Brian shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the growing wall of phones pointed in their direction. Still. Linda Walsh took a breath, stepped forward, and said with low authority, Ms. Carter, you've refused multiple requests. I'm now ordering you to exit the premises or be removed. She reached out and lightly touched Vanessa's forearm, not aggressively, but firmly, like she thought that would somehow solve the situation. And that was it. The spark hit the gasoline. Don't touch her, Emma Larson screamed, rushing forward with her phone aimed straight at Linda's hand. Michael Grant jumped beside her, shouting, Back away from her! You have no right! The customers behind them surged closer, surrounding Vanessa like she was under attack. Don't let them push her, one man yelled. She hasn't done anything wrong, cried another woman holding her son's hand. The room, once sleek and orderly with polished floors and bright light reflecting off expensive cars, was now a battlefield. Daniel looked like a general losing control of his troops. Nicole stepped back. I'm not getting involved in this mess, she muttered. Brian retreated toward the service hallway, mumbling something about calling HR, but no one was listening to the staff anymore. The people were speaking. Mia rushed between Linda and Vanessa, arms outstretched. You're crossing the line. Linda, she hasn't been violent. She hasn't threatened anyone. You're overstepping. Linda blinked, confusion on her face. I was told to remove her. Told by who? Michael snapped. That guy? He jabbed a finger toward Daniel, who now looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. He's the one who should be escorted out, Emma yelled. He's the one covering up lies. Rachel's voice buzzed into Vanessa's earpiece again. He's here. James is in the lobby. Vanessa didn't flinch. She simply whispered, Let him walk in. Let him see it all. Meanwhile, the crowd had grown not just louder but larger. Customers from the far side of the dealership had wandered over, drawn by the shouting and the dozens of raised phones. Some stood in silence. Others added their voices to the rising tide of outrage. Why are you trying to get rid of her? A woman in her 60s asked. She's just standing there, said a teen holding up his phone. I saw the video. She's the real owner, shouted a man in business attire. Linda took a single step back. Something in her expression cracked. I didn't know who she was. Vanessa looked her in the eyes. And that's the problem. The whole room seemed to freeze as the front glass doors swung open. The air shifted like someone had opened a window. James Thompson, 55, tall, composed, and holding a brown leather folder, walked into the showroom like a man who knew the storm had already passed and he was just here to pick up the debris. What the hell is going on here? He asked, voice steady but demanding. The crowd parted for him like waves around a ship. Nicole's jaw dropped. Mr. Thompson? Daniel took a shaky step forward. Sir, this woman, she claimed, she's causing a disturbance. That woman, James said, cutting him off, is Vanessa Carter, the woman who is, by law and contract, the incoming owner of Horizon Auto Dealership. He didn't shout it. He didn't need to. His words dropped like a gavel in a courtroom. Phones zoomed in. Mia gasped and looked at Vanessa with tears rising in her eyes. Emma clapped her hands, cheering. Yes, yes! Say it again, Michael shouted. Let him hear you in the back! Daniel's eyes widened as if he had been stabbed with the truth. What? He whispered. She said she was the owner. Nicole stammered. We thought. You thought wrong, James said without emotion. He handed Vanessa the folder, flipping it open to reveal the printed acquisition documents. Sign whenever you're ready. It's already processed. Vanessa accepted the folder like it weighed nothing, even though everyone in the room knew it carried the weight of justice, truth, and finality. James turned to the crowd. For those of you filming, let this moment be clear. Vanessa Carter is not only the owner of this business, she is the future of this business. And if anyone here had doubts, those doubts are now invalid. Emma's phone hit 12,000 views. Michael's jumped from 60K to 90K while the crowd erupted in applause. She's the boss, someone shouted. You see that? Yelled another. They tried to erase her. The tide had officially turned. Linda, still standing awkwardly near the front, slowly lowered her eyes. I didn't know, she repeated softly. Vanessa turned toward her and, for the first time, spoke with warmth. Then let today be the day you know better. Linda nodded, eyes filling with something close to regret. James surveyed the staff, Daniel trembling, Nicole speechless, Brian nowhere to be found. We'll be having a very different meeting this afternoon, he said coldly. The customers remained standing with Vanessa. The staff stood alone. And the future, once hidden behind bias and disrespect, now stood shining at the front of the showroom with a platinum card in one hand and a pen in the other. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't begged. She simply stood her ground, and everyone who had tried to tear her down was now watching her rise. Vanessa stepped forward, folder in hand, the crowd still buzzing from James Thompson's declaration, her posture steady, her eyes locked on the faces of those who had spent the last 15 minutes trying to humiliate her. Let me make something very clear, she said, voice calm but commanding. I am Vanessa Carter, CEO, and as of today, the rightful owner of Horizon Auto Dealership. A sharp gasp spread through the room, followed by a wave of murmurs and wide-eyed stares. The tension cracked like thunder. Daniel staggered back a half step, color draining from his face. That can't be, he mumbled. I didn't know. Nicole's jaw clenched, trying to find footing. You never said who you were. Vanessa turned to her with a look that silenced everything. I did. You just didn't listen. You were too busy laughing at my t-shirt to hear my name. The phones in the crowd were all pointed at her now, dozens of lenses capturing the moment the tables finally turned. Emma Larson's voice rang out from behind the lens of her phone. You go, Vanessa, Michael shouted. That's justice right there. Views were exploding. Emma's video had crossed 2,000. We're live on TikTok, she announced proudly. Say hello to your new boss, y'all. Vanessa didn't smile. Not yet. She turned her attention to Daniel. You dismissed my ID, ignored my words, accused me of lying, and threatened to throw me out of my own building. She opened the folder and pulled out a copy of the acquisition agreement. This document here, she said, raising it in the air. It proves what your instincts wouldn't let you believe, that a black woman in jeans could own the business you've been mismanaging. James stepped forward to stand beside her. Everything is in order, he said firmly. Vanessa's ownership is official as of this afternoon. The final signature is all that's left. Vanessa nodded and lowered the document. And before I sign, there are some matters to address. Her voice carried with full authority now, no longer testing waters. Nicole Harris, Brian Foster, Daniel Pierce, you're fired. The three froze, but Vanessa didn't wait. Effective immediately, your behavior today is grounds for termination, harassment, insubordination, manipulation of internal records, and failure to uphold even the most basic standards of professional conduct. Daniel's mouth opened, but James cut him off. Don't even try it. Daniel, I watched the footage. I heard the recordings. You embarrassed this business. Mia stepped up beside Vanessa, handing her phone over. Here's the audio of them mocking her, calling her a fraud, and erasing her name from the log. Rachel's voice came through Vanessa's earpiece. Everything's been logged and backed up. We've sent the files to legal. Vanessa nodded slightly and turned to the room. We're going to rebuild this place. Not just polish the floors and push luxury cars, but train a staff that knows how to treat every customer, every person, with respect, no matter what they look like. Nicole, still stuck in disbelief, finally blurted out, "It wasn't personal. This is just how we screen people. We deal with a lot of scammers." That excuse, Vanessa cut in, is how bias hides. You called me a scammer before you even checked my name. You saw my skin, my clothes, and made up a whole story. But that story ends now. Brian spoke up for the first time in minutes. I was just backing up my team. I didn't mean. You forged records, Vanessa said flatly. That's more than loyalty. That's complicity. James folded his arms, adding, and we've found more discrepancies in recent logs. The audit's already underway. Then came the moment no one saw coming. Nicole's face changed. She looked at the ground, then up at James. It was Daniel, she said softly. He told us to target certain customers, people who looked unserious. Told us to log them as walkouts, said it helped numbers. A ripple moved through the crowd again. James narrowed his eyes. Is that true? Daniel? Daniel didn't answer. His silence said more than words ever could. Mia gasped. So that's why I never saw those reports filed. They were hiding it. Vanessa stared at Nicole. And you went along with it? Nicole nodded. I did. I'm sorry. I got used to it. I thought it was normal here. Vanessa took a breath, then turned back to the crowd. This is what systemic bias looks like. It's not always shouted. Sometimes it's whispered into policy, buried in spreadsheets, hidden in silence. Linda, still standing off to the side, raised her hand quietly. Ma'am, I was wrong too. I was doing my job, but I didn't question what I was enforcing. I almost laid hands on you because someone said you were a threat. I should have asked questions. I didn't. I'm sorry. Vanessa studied her for a long moment. Everyone makes mistakes. What you do next, that's what matters. Then, to everyone's surprise, Vanessa turned to Mia. You stood up when it mattered. You documented the truth. You risked your job for justice. And that's why I'm promoting you to showroom manager, effective immediately. Mia's eyes welled up. Me? Vanessa smiled. Yes, we need people with backbone and compassion. You showed both. The crowd erupted in cheers, clapping and shouting as Mia nodded. Trying not to cry, Emma shouted. Finally, someone with integrity running the place, Michael added. This is what leadership looks like. James handed Vanessa a pen. All that's left is your signature. Vanessa looked at the folder, then back at the people. Some stunned, some smiling, some still watching through screens. This dealership, she said, is going to stand for something, not just profit, but dignity, accountability, and respect. And as the applause swelled, the phones kept rolling, and the internet flooded with the hashtag Horizon Shock. Vanessa raised the pen, took a deep breath, and got ready to sign. Not just the document, but a new chapter. Vanessa signed her name with a steady hand, then closed the folder and handed it back to James without a word. The crowd had quieted, not out of fear, but respect. Her authority was no longer in question. She turned slowly, eyes locking onto the trio who had tried to eject her from her own business. Nicole Harris, Brian Foster, Daniel Pierce, she said, her voice crisp, final. You are officially terminated, effective immediately." The words hung in the air like thunder. Daniel opened his mouth to protest, but Vanessa raised a single finger. "Don't. I have recordings, testimonies, altered logs. You mocked, erased, and tried to intimidate me. This isn't a discussion." James nodded beside her, adding, "Security will escort them off the premises once we're finished here." Nicole looked down, her face unreadable, but Brian, now visibly sweating, tried one last time. "We were told to do this," he said, voice cracking. "It wasn't just today. Daniel created the process. We were told to profile." "By whom?" Vanessa cut in, sharp as glass. Brian hesitated, glancing at Daniel, then away. "We were told to push certain customers out, minorities, casual dressers, anyone who didn't look serious. He said it made conversion numbers look cleaner." Mia's mouth dropped open. "You've been filtering who even gets a test drive?" Brian nodded. "And faking logs to show those people never showed up at all." Vanessa exhaled slowly. "You do realize this goes beyond one incident. You built a wall around this dealership and kept out the very people we're here to serve." Daniel finally snapped, shouting, "You don't know what it's like running a place like this. We're judged by numbers. I did what I had to." Vanessa met his eyes with steel. "No, you did what was easy, what was biased, and what ends today." The room stayed hushed. Then Vanessa turned to Linda Walsh, the security officer who had nearly removed her by force. "Linda," she said calmly, "you threatened me. You didn't ask questions, but you also didn't lay a hand on me, and you stood down when you saw the truth." Linda's shoulders dropped. "I did," she said quietly. "And I was wrong." Vanessa nodded. "I believe in consequences, but I also believe in second chances. You're not fired, but you will be retrained. Fully. Your job will depend on your progress. And your attitude." Linda blinked, clearly stunned. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll do better." Vanessa gave a small nod, then turned back to Mia. "Today you did what no one else would. You stood between bias and decency. You recorded the truth. You confronted power when it was easier to stay quiet." She smiled. "That's the kind of leadership I want at Horizon." Mia's voice trembled. "You're keeping me?" "I'm promoting you," Vanessa said. "You're the new showroom manager. Starting today." The crowd erupted in applause. Several customers clapped loudly. Emma whistled and shouted, "Yes, Mia!" Michael grinned. "That's how you build a better business." Vanessa raised her voice slightly, so everyone, staff, customers, phones still recording, could hear. "From today forward, Horizon will not operate as it did before. We are initiating a full policy audit. Every employee will undergo mandatory anti-bias and equity training. We will review sales logs from the past 2 years. Any manipulation, any profiling, will be uncovered and dealt with." James nodded beside her. "The audit firm has already been contacted. It starts this week." And then Brian, voice hollow, added one final twist. "Daniel's not the only one. We've been coached by regional leadership before. They knew. They told us to keep things clean. That's how we got bonuses. The system isn't just local. It's bigger." A murmur rippled through the room. Vanessa inhaled slowly, processing the weight of it. "Then the reform won't stop here," she said. "It starts at Horizon, but it won't end here. We'll expose whoever looked the other way." Rachel's voice came through her earpiece again. "System updates complete. Your ownership is live in the back end. All staff access levels have been changed. Fired staff accounts are locked." Vanessa looked over the showroom one last time, still buzzing from what they'd just witnessed. To every customer who stood up today, you'll be receiving personal outreach, along with service credits. You helped protect not just me, but what this business can become, Emma called out. Thank you. Vanessa, Michael added. You didn't just buy a dealership, you started something bigger. Vanessa offered a small, tired smile. We're not done, but we've begun. Vanessa stood in her new office, finally alone, the glass walls offering a wide view of the Atlanta skyline, while the last echoes of clapping faded from the showroom below. Her desk was clear, save for the folder James had handed her earlier, now fully signed, embossed, final. Horizon Auto Dealership was hers, officially and absolutely. She exhaled slowly, setting her phone down next to a photo of her late mother she had pulled from her purse earlier. The only personal item she'd brought with her today. It was more than a signature. It was a statement, a reclamation, not just of power, but of place. A place that had told her, decades ago, that she wasn't a good fit. A place where once she was denied a job over her look, her voice, her name. Now. She sat at the head of it, reimagining what it could be. She tapped her earpiece. Rachel, she said softly. Go ahead and release the internal memo, Rachel replied. Done. Staff-wide announcement just went out. Retraining program starts next week. Audit team lands Monday. Vanessa nodded, pleased. And customer outreach? In motion. Credits are being applied. Emma and Michael are already trending. Vanessa smiled faintly. She pulled up the trending tab on her laptop. Hashtag Horizon Shock was climbing fast. With over 500,000 views across platforms, videos of her calm confrontation, Mia's audio recordings, and the customer uprising had gone viral, not because they were dramatic, but because they were true, unfiltered, a mirror. Emma's post now read, She changed the story in real time. A dealership now worth supporting. Michael's video caption said, From shame to strength, Horizon is under new leadership, and it shows. Vanessa closed the tab and leaned back in her chair. The reform wasn't just about one store. It was a blueprint. She wasn't done, not even close. A soft knock came at the door. Mia stepped in, now in a new name badge that read Manager, still looking slightly in awe of it all. Just wanted to say, thank you, she said, for trusting me, for not walking away. Vanessa stood and gave a warm smile. You didn't just speak up. You held the line when others ran. You made this moment possible. Mia's voice wavered slightly. I think I finally understand what leadership really looks like. Good, Vanessa replied, because now it's your turn to lead it forward. Mia nodded and quietly left the office, her footsteps light with purpose. Vanessa sat again, her mind drifting toward Linda, who was already meeting with the retraining consultant. She had asked for a second chance, and Vanessa had given it. That mattered, not just because Linda hadn't physically harmed her, but because she'd stopped, listened, and admitted she was wrong. That kind of humility? Rare. Worth building on. Vanessa looked again at the folder, her signature already drying. The dealership was hers now. Yes, but more than that. The culture was hers to rewrite. Then came the final twist. Rachel's voice returned through the earpiece, more serious this time. Vanessa, we just got a call from the audit firm. Preliminary review of Horizon's logs shows a pattern, going back years, not just under Daniel, but under regional leadership. They'd flagged certain zip codes. Customers from majority black neighborhoods were quietly redirected, logged as no-show or budget mismatch. It wasn't just one store. It was policy handed down. Vanessa's face didn't move. She just said, How many stores? At least 5, maybe more. We're getting full files this week. Vanessa closed her eyes for a second. Then we clean it up. All of it. Not just Horizon. Rachel didn't hesitate. We're ready, Vanessa whispered. So am I. She opened a blank note on her laptop and began typing, Initiative 1, Regional Equity Overhaul. She wasn't just fixing a dealership anymore. She was cracking the foundation of an entire network. Across the room, her mother's photo seemed to watch from the desk. A memory surfaced, being told at 16 that she spoke too assertively to work in sales. Now she was rewriting every playbook that had once pushed her out. 3 months later, Horizon Auto launched its equity expansion plan, led by Vanessa herself. Every store under her name underwent bias retraining, policy rewrites, and data audits. Former customers who had been profiled or mistreated were contacted, compensated, and invited back with dignity. Mia rose to senior manager. Linda completed retraining and was quietly coaching new recruits. And Emma and Michael? They stayed in touch, both returning to buy vehicles with full confidence in the business. But on that first quiet afternoon, in her first few hours as owner, Vanessa didn't rush to celebrate. She sat in that glass office, took a breath, and whispered to herself, We're just getting started. And for anyone watching who had ever been dismissed, overlooked, or judged by their skin, their clothes, or their silence, Vanessa's rise wasn't just victory, it was proof. Proof that dignity can speak louder than shame, that receipts matter. That real reform begins not with PR, but with power doing the right thing, when no one's clapping yet, and to everyone watching across the internet, scrolling past the trending videos, one line stood out in bold. She didn't burn the place down. She rebuilt it better. And if you're reading this now, don't just scroll, speak up, stand up, build something better.